back at it.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Infinite Repeat. I'm your host Nate. The new Batman movie directed by Matt Reeves starring Robert Pattinson is just around the corner, and I couldn't be more excited. Seriously, I think I've watched that trailer more than a dozen times. It's funny how many times I've seen the beginnings of Batman and I'm still excited for this new interpretation. Can't wait to see those pearls fly again. But before that, I wanted to take a look back at probably the most influential Batman story, Batman Year One, the comic and the animated movie. Batman Year One came out in 1987, written by Frank Miller, illustrated by David Mazzucchelli, colors by Richmond Lewis. Veteran comic book fans will be familiar with Frank's other works on Batman, including Dark Knight Returns, All-Star Batman, as well as this. Also his work on Marvel writing Daredevil along with Mazzucchelli. Unfortunately in this video I won't be comparing Batman Year One to his other work because I haven't read his other work. But from what I've heard, Batman Year One might be Frank's best work when it comes to the Caped Crusader. So let's find out. So the beginning of the story actually doesn't start on Batman himself, but instead we are first introduced to Lieutenant James Gordon. See, this story isn't just Batman Year One. You might say the story is even more focused on James Gordon than it is Batman. And if you look at the panel layout, Gordon actually takes center stage before eventually transitioning to Bruce, and then it goes back and forth between both characters, illustrating that this is a shared story between the two. He will become the greatest crime fighter the world has ever known. It won't be easy. The story of Batman Year One focuses on the early night outs of Bruce as Batman, as well as his failings. See, Bruce is very sloppy in this, or as he puts it,
Lucky amateur.
in this, Batman doesn't have all the gadgets that we know he has yet. He's not the world's greatest detective yet. In fact, he gets beaten, stabbed, shot multiple times in this. And that's actually my favorite part of the story. No, I don't like seeing Batman getting hurt, but seeing him make mistakes. Compare this to Batman Begins. In that, we do get to see more of Batman's training compared to this, but by the time he becomes Batman, it seems like he's an expert, like he's been doing this for years. In this story, our first look at Batman is not this epic moment. Instead, it's an almost botched job where he tries to stop a group of teenagers from stealing a TV from a scaffolding. One of the teenagers almost dying if Batman didn't save him. We also get to see Batman's early fear tactics, setting up spotlights and smoke grenades illustrated in this scene here just to strike the right amount of fear into hearts of criminals. It's cool to see the less than expert Batman on juxtaposed to the one we know he will become. One gunshot wound, one mistake, that's all it would take to cost Batman, put him in a worse situation he was before. After saving an old lady that was almost hit by an out-of-control driver, Batman is chased into an old tenement building. Commander Loeb, not wanting to miss his chance to capture the Bat, bombs the building and sends his own SWAT team, despite the warnings of Lieutenant Gordon. They've got him cornered, they got him outnumbered, they got him trapped, they're in trouble. With the building in flames, most of Batman's equipment goes along with it. Except for a handful of blow darts, Batman is now left with his brains, bronze, and a secret weapon. In this part, we get to see Batman take on the cops one by one. But the sun's coming up, and when there's light, there's darkness. And that secret weapon that Batman has that I was talking about, it's a device that allows him to call on a swarm of bats, covering Batman's escape. And thus, the legend of Batman is born.
What is that? Back up. What the?
He's out to clean up a city that likes being dirty. He can't do it alone.
First attracted to in reading Batman Year One was that James Gordon actually is the star. That's the way I look at it anyway. You know, Batman, Bruce Wayne, is just kind of an added colorful figure.
It's told from his point of view, from Gordon's point of view. And so we get to hear what he's thinking.
And so there's all this awesome material about, Jim Gordon when he first arrives in Gotham City and he starts how he deals with the corruption and, just all of this great, psychodrama stuff that's going on with him.
I hate the job. I hate the gun. But I keep practicing.
Now there's also Jim Gordon, where Batman's conflict is mostly external. Jim's conflict is internal. See, the reason Gordon is back in Gotham is for turning in a corrupt cop in Chicago, where he previously worked. And unfortunately for Gordon, the cops are just as dirty in Gotham, all the way up to the commissioner.
Flash. Nothing I can't handle, Lieutenant. Hey, Stevie. Mother know you're here?
Oh, crap.
He's got a Green Beret's training. He knows how to use his size, too. Don't do a damn thing. Be sure of your facts before you bring down another cop. Just watch him. Memorize every move for future reference.
And Gordon has to either get on board or get hurt. And I love this parallel between Bruce and Jim. And of course, just like Bruce, Jim has to learn the hard way that if you want to change Gotham, you have to fight back. And he does. Another conflict in Jim's story is when he actually puts on himself, where Jim starts to get a little too close with a fellow female detective. And that wouldn't be a problem if he wasn't also a married man with a kid on the way.
I need to come clean with Barbara, beg for forgiveness. I can't stop thinking about her. Like I can't stop thinking about Batman. He's a criminal. I'm a cop. It's as simple as that.
To make matters worse, Jim's superiors of course find out about this and use this to blackmail Jim to get him to fall in line. Gordon, I feel like, gets most of the character development of the story, not only wondering whether or not he should arrest the Batman, but also his own personal relationship with him and his wife and having to deal with that. A very real problem. Gordon does tell his wife what is going on between him and his co-worker, taking the power away from his superiors. Unfortunately, that does not stop them. See, Commissioner Loeb is not just corrupt, he's also working with some of Gotham's crime families. In the final confrontation of the book, a couple of goons are sent over to Gordon's house to attack his wife and child. He gets there in time to save his wife, but then a chase ensues to save his newborn child. Thankfully, Bruce is also there to help save the day, and thus the partnership between Batman and Jim Gordon is formed.
Turns out Flass is smarter than he looks.
Commissioner Loeb says
Took notes on every little talk he ever had with Loeb. Dates, times, it was all there. Loeb is holding up pretty well for someone under federal indictment for racketeering. Barbara's not crazy about the marriage counselor, but we're making progress. As for me, well, there's a real panic on. Somebody's threatened to poison the Gotham Reservoir. Calls himself the Joker. I've got a friend coming who might be able to help. Should be here any minute.
Finally, there's Selena Kyle. I didn't know whether to mention her before, but she's also in this story. But she's not a major player in the story, which is why I didn't mention her until now. At the beginning of the story, she actually starts off as a prostitute, showing once again how dark things are in Gotham. And this interpretation of her character is actually implied that it's Batman that inspires her to don her Catwoman persona, which we see by the end of this book.
Shoot on sight! 12 years. The ache is still fresh. Like a raw, angry nerve. This isn't about healing. I'm not looking for closure.
Batman Year One, the animated movie, was released on October 18, 2011, and it's pretty much a one-for-one translation of the book, to the point where it's actually very, very short. It literally only clocks in an hour and 4 minutes, which I don't know what else they could have really done. The story arc itself is only 4 issues, so there's really not much they could have added or taken away. So I guess if you're too lazy to read the comic, you can always watch the animated movie. I actually don't have a problem with the movie. It's pretty good, especially the action in the movie. It all flows really well. It definitely helps that they cut out a lot of the dialogue and thought bubbles that the characters are having. These fight scenes wouldn't be nearly as good if we had constantly had Batman and Jim talking in their heads like they do in the comic. There are some negatives I have with the animated movie. First off, the voice cast. We got a good amount of professional actors, but most of these guys have either not done voice work before or the work they have done is very minuscule. For example, our lead character Batman, voiced by Ben McKenzie, I don't think was a great choice to play Batman in this. He's not terrible. I just don't think he fits the character very well. Especially when he's playing Batman. I think he's trying a little too hard.
I know pain. Sometimes I share it with someone like you.
Such an interesting dynamic.
If he ever decided to reprise his role as Batman in the future, I might feel differently about it. Funny enough, he actually goes to play Jim Gordon in the Batman TV show, which I think he does a lot better than that. Speaking of Jim Gordon, Gordon is actually portrayed by Bryan Cranston in this, and I think he's probably the best voice actor in this. probably because he's done voice work before. And also, does anyone think that Bryan Cranston actually looks like he could play Jim Gordon in live action? Catwoman is portrayed by Eliza Dushku, who, again, has not done voice work before.
I hear Falcone's got a fortune in old stuff. Maybe I'll give the Roman a little scratch before I steal it. On the face. Won't think it's Batman if I give him a scratch.
There are some standouts in the cast, however, like John Pelosi as Commissioner Loeb and Alex Rocco as Carmine Falcone, but I think we're both great choices.
It's costing us all money. It's fun playing gangsters. Where else can you say, get up against the wall, I'm gonna blow your head away? You know, I mean, I really love playing gangsters.
And there are some veteran voice actors in this, like Katie Slakoff as Detective Sarah Essen, Jeff Pennant as Alfred, and Robin Atkin Downs as Harvey Dent. It's not a long film, so I think overall no one really gets a chance to shine. Besides Bryan Cranston as Jim Gordon, maybe it was a little bit longer, I think, be a lot more harsh on everyone. But overall, everyone's decent. Then there's also the animation of the movie, or I should say the art style. I didn't talk too much about the art style of the comic. Monticelli's and Richmond's art and colors are really what makes the book stand out. The line work, the yellows, the blues, the purples, the reds, everything in that book is what makes it unique. And the movie just looks a little too clean for me. Don't get me wrong, there's a couple scenes I think are animated very well in the movie, particularly when Batman finally decides to become the Bat.
Dull sense left my life. Yes, Father.
But I think it's the same problem that DC's The Killing Joke had. When you take away those colors, you lose what made the comic special. Batman Year One was and still is considered one of the most influential Batman stories. It was the definitive blueprint for Batman's origin. Without Batman Year One, we probably wouldn't have gotten Batman Begins or even the Gotham TV show. Batman's origin story has also been redefined over the years, and DC has let other writers take their own spin on the early adventures of Bruce Wayne. For example, Batman Earth One, written by Jeff Johns and illustrated by Gary Frank, showing once again a young Bruce Wayne, but also going more in depth with his relationship with Alfred. Then there's also the more recent Batman Zero Year in the New 52, written by Scott Snyder and illustrated by Greg Capullo, which once again tackles the early adventures of Bruce Wayne, but also one of his first encounters with the Riddler. I'm sure we will see all elements from all three of these stories in the new Matt Reeves movie. Which ones exactly? Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So if you're looking for more of a modern take on Batman's origins, definitely give those stories a read. But don't neglect Batman Year One, the comic. The comic's better. And thanks for checking out my video on my look back on Batman Year One. If you want me to tackle more comic book stories or characters or anything superhero related, let me know in the comments. Like the video and subscribe to stay updated with videos I post in the future. Also follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Nate_Infinite1. And also finally, I've done a podcast with one of my good friends where we talk about movies, shows, and games that we're looking forward to. Check that out. I'll also put that link in the description. As always, this is Infinite Repeat. I've been Nate. Stay up.